Greetings! It is I, Cantus Mayor of Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. Once more, we are discussing tabletop lore. Today, diving back into the world of darkness, more Werewolf The Apocalypse. Found a changing breed and a fair to talk about today. New for me talking about. But you're joining me live on Twitch. Hey Twitch, nice to see you there. Just to, follow would be great for a little bit of support there. If, of course, you're joining me on YouTube, which most of you tend to do, hi, YouTube. Always glad to have you here, too, and enjoying the show. Remember, for you, the subscription, liking, ring the bell. And for both sides, though, the comment for today is, have you any experience with the Werebats? The Camazotz? This is a good question, because they are technically an extinct changing breed. But if you played any of the Wild West Werewolf The Apocalypse, well, you could have encountered one still there, or had links to it at that point in time. That's where they were mentioned. I don't know if they actually still existed. I think they were already extinct by then. Nonetheless, there's still connections to them. And it's possible that you could have also done other story or past games and stuff. Have you had any experience with Camazotz? Anyway, let's talk about the books and kind of some materials that you can use in order to do some research on your own, because there's a bunch of sources that I can kind of throw out here that are good places to start out with. If you want to do some research on your own, you can. Of course, I would also recommend starting out with the place that the Camazotz were first mentioned, the Wild West Companion. That's probably the first place. It's a very tiny picture of it here, but it's there. Similar to that is the Tales from the Trails, Mexico, which was a Werewolf Wild West Companion source book. If you want to really dive into some of the history of the Camazotz, which we'll go for the beginning here, this is the revised Tribe Book of the Shadow Lords. So it's not the first Tribe Book of the Shadow Lords. The second one talks a little bit about what was going on with their history there and their connections with the Shadow Lords, because there's a connection to talk about. And of course, if you want to look at the V20 book here, the Changing Breeds book is a great place to go to for getting information about that. So, and also the Past Lives books has even a book that has a little bit of information there. If you want, that's those books that you can check out that I would recommend if you want to do some research on your own. So, yeah, the Camazotz, they're Werebats. They are effectively extinct. Is there a possibility for return? Honestly speaking, probably not. It's one of those ones that, like, when we talk about extinct, we mean extinct for a variety of reasons. But we can discuss their existence now, and then you understand them a little bit more to understand if you wanted a storyline in a modern-day game that was involving the resurrection of the Camazotz in some way, you could maybe do. Because there might be some things. It's unfortunate that there are very few that remember the Camazotz. The Mokale do. They have their memories, and they keep the Camazotz deep within their memory. Camazotz were the messengers of Gaia that were counterparts to the Korax. They flew through the night, and the lands in which ravens did not. So, in places where you wouldn't have ravens, you have the Werebats, the Camazotz. And during the night, you often have them while Korax was from the dead. The spirit bat, their totem spirit, had a much deeper relationship with the Camazotz than many of the Pharaohs and their spirit bodies. Than werewolves with wolf, Korax with raven, and any of those kind of such things. They had a very deep connection with Bat. Bat loved his children, knowing that they had a burden of mistrust and were shunned by their cousins. He lavished a lot of gifts and advice upon the Camazotz, and teaching them special kinds of blood magic after the European Camazotz were exterminated during the War of Rage. So the War of Rage killed off a portion of the Camazotz, those that were in Europe, leaving those in the New World on their own. With the near extermination of his children, basically driving them back to one section of the entire planet, Bat's mind cracked. He gained two split personalities. One that was still in service of Gaia, but another that now served the Wyrm. The Gaian personality fought against the Wyrmish ones, and eventually in the War of Tears, the end of the Bunyip in Australia, he finally went over the edge and was fully embraced by the Wyrm. And this was only part of the downfall of the Camazotz, the loss of their totem to the Wyrm. It was a big one. But, historically, the War of Rage is what drove them mostly to extinction. Black Spiral Dancers helped with that, then, later on, so that all the surviving Camazotz were in South America. Basically, War of Rage killed most of them in the world, Black Spirals finished off the rest, and then the small population were in South America. For the 1600s, Garu accompanied the Spanish conquistadors, wiped them out. The Shadow Lords. Remember, I said the Shadow Lords book would be important here for the historical connections. They were the ones that came along with the conquistadors. They were lured by the Chiropteran shapes and blood rituals, which reminded them of their ancient enemies, the Semiche vampires, the Shadow Lords had fought against. They were similar. And believing them servants of the Wyrm, they wiped them out. The last Camazotz was killed by a Garu called Dark Claw of Vengeance. Their crime is a secret of their tribe. But the spiritual death scream of the last Werebat was said to have triggered an event that led to the creation of Storm Eater, which was a massive creature that dealt with a lot of things during the Wild West time period. Bane, that ravaged the American West in the 1800s. So, helped create that. And then after the destruction, their totem, Bat, fell to the Wyrm. Already, Wyrm, the spirit, was kind of mad, but now their totem also fell. Now, that isn't to say that there's a disconnection between the totem and the spirit, of course. They're very linked. But nonetheless, there is a little bit of redemption to Bat. At least its totem. A descendant of Dark Claw of Vengeance, a Shadow Lord, who goes by the name of, and as far as information provided, is alive, Miguel Gutierrez, basically decided to create a group to redeem their ancestors, particularly his own. Remember, his own ancestor was the one that struck the final deal, the blow against the Werebats. And so to make amends for it, he managed to travel into a Wyrm realm with a group and return alive and untainted by the Wyrm and redeem part of Bat Totem. Something that his elders thought was suicidal. So they've established the scent of Mother Earth and don't speak of what happened in that drug. So they travel to Malpheus, which is definitely a very interesting thing, because Malpheus is a realm of the Wyrm in the Deep Umbra. So, part of Bat has at least been redeemed. Part of it. But what does this mean for Bat as a whole? Hard to say. There are some travelers that go to the Umbra that say the Camazotz are not dead. Though they have no totem, the last ones live within the Deep Umbra and serve still as messengers and spies to God. They cannot create more of them. They hide there, living for all time. They leave messages in dead drops, give information on ways to recipients that no one knew who delivered it. There are Nushiwa and Korax, very talented Umbral travelers that have tried to confirm these rumors, but none have been able to confirm whether they're true or not. they did live longer than many changing breeds believe. But with their totem falling, they are all but extinct. The fact is that without their totem, no more can be born. So, even if there are some ancient Camazotz deep in the Umbra that have escaped all this, that still serve Gaia, their totem is gone. They've lost most of their strength. And they're just doing that out of, I don't know, a need to continue the work, to continue to serve, even if all is destroyed and lost. So, much like the Korax, the Camazotz, switch around. There we go. Reproduced by ritual. This ritual, of course, went defunct when the bat fell to the Wyrm, so you can't use this ritual anymore. Again, if there's some form of redemption that could be had to the totem or to bat, perhaps the ritual could come back into existence, but it's a long shot. Basically, to become a werebat, an infant human or bat had to undergo a ritual that can only be spelled in special umbral caves. And because they were created by this ritual, werebats had no auspice or metis breeds. They were only homid or bat. So, their forms. These are the 4 basic forms here that I'm kind of showing off here in the image. And they had 4 of them, and then one that they could access through special gift, or some other situations. So they had their homid, their normal human, their epiteros, their near human, couldn't fly but could climb especially well. They had a Krynos form, their war form of the Camazotz, and the Mega Chiroptera, which was a giant bat with a wingspan of 5 feet. Their extra form, which was not a default, was available to those who took a level 3 gift called 1,000 Wings. The Micro Chiroptera, which they could turn into a swarm of bats, a dozen smaller ones. It's a little similar to the Anasazi's ability to turn into a swarm. There is also a merit that someone could take from it, which they would then get the Micro Chiroptera instead of the Mega Chiroptera, but when they took the 1,000 Wing gift later, they would pick the Mega instead. So basically, if you took the merit, you get to turn into tiny bats, but not a giant bat, and you get the gift later on to be the giant bat instead. You know, it's one or the other. You only have 4 forms to begin, even if you had that merit. So, they were very social. They lived in egalitarian swarms between the dozens and hundreds of members. They lived in caverns alongside their bat kinfolk. They were inclined to secrecy and attempted to maintain friendly and open relationships with other shapeshifters. They had gifts of speed, stealth, heightened perceptions, and they were great spies because of this. And they would keep what they discovered between their allies and Gaia. One of their major strengths, as well as the reasons that Gara feared them, it was exceptionally difficult to know what one of them was when one of them was listening to a conversation. Very good ears. Now, the Camazotz could only step sideways in the near Umbra if they were in a shadow. They had a level 2 gift that they could learn to step sideways anywhere, but they did so if a gauntlet was 2 points higher than it normally would. They did have a level 5 gift that could allow them to step sideways into deep Umbra, but they can only do that from shadow. So that's, again, that fact that they did have a powerful gift to step sideways into deep Umbra does scream that if there are survivors of this extinct breed, they could be in the deep Umbra just hiding out and not coming in. It's not to say they couldn't be because of that. It could be a story, finding the remnants of the Camazotz. There can't be any more of them. Maybe there's a reason for it. Now, the fact is, post-War of Rage, they withdrew from many of their brethren. They mistrusted any fare that still consorted with the wolves. Save for the Mokale, who was congenial. The Camazotz of the Eastern Hemisphere withdrew from their allies amongst the Beast Course not long after the War of Rage. They still served the Asian Emerald Mother, but they became more secretive and insular, and their alliances began to strain. And in Asia, they refused to accept that the Hakan Stargazers were not complicit in their murders in Europe and North America. They shunned the Beast Course for tolerating Garu's presence and vanished. And this is when that became mad, and after the massacre in South America, to the Australian colonies of their kind. The Mokale and Bunyip accepted them, tried to ease their pains, but could not help. And then vanished into the Umber by the time the first European Garus set foot on Australian soil. That's another reason that there could be some Camazotz left kind of there, is through the Asian side of things, those that were part of the Beast Courts. They had more protections post the War of Rage, and of course the slaughter of their South American brethren. But still, they lost everything. Their totem corrupted, their spirit mad. Is there hope? I don't know. I'd say no. It's a thing that there could be members left of them that still live and exist within the Umbra. They would have the knowledge to rebuild their kind if their totem would return to them. Their gift of being able to create more of them return to power. But there's a lot of questions on that. The thing is, even if some of them fled to the Umbra, the deep Umbra, how many still exist? It's a dangerous place there. There might not be enough. There might not be any that would remember at this point in time. Any that have a sense, if they exist there. There's so many ifs about the death of the Camazotz. Sorry. The Camazotz are one of those groups that it's not as simple as just the War of Rage killed them off. A lot of things happened to kill them off. Multiple things. Camazotz are a message, in a way, against distrust. Because distrust of them helped cause their slaughter, and their distrust also helped. If those that were in the Beast Course remained with them, maybe they could have still survived to the day, found in a way to keep a little portion of back uncorrupted. Something. But they gave in to distrust. It's a twofold story. The distrust of others and their own distrust drove them to this point in time. Certainly, the Garu behind the War and Rage, and of course the Shadow Lords, are very at fault here. But we've seen that there are members of the Shadow Lords that honestly regret what happened, and have worked to make up for it. Small Port of Bat has been redeemed. It makes hope for perhaps true redemption to still happen. Will it? Hard to say. But this leaves open for stories. Stories you might want to tell in your own games as a storyteller around the Camazotz, their legacy, and what's happening. And I think that's what makes them interesting to kind of talk about. Because they leave open for these stories. That probably more so than any other edition or game will tell you or we as storytellers. Anyway, that's it for today. Remember, I've mentioned all those things, the following, subscriptions, likes, and stuff at the beginning. I have social media, Discord, Twitter. If you're going to check out more tabletop-related stuff, it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, early afternoon, usually between 1 or 2 EST, depending on my schedule. And then Saturdays at around 11, sometimes a little later depending on my things that are coming to, but mostly around 11. That's our World of Darkness day on Saturdays. So if you want to see World of Darkness stuff directly, that's then. Also, Crimson Queen, my Pathfinder 1E show, live play of it, is on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. EST. Check that out, it's really fun. It's great. It's me doing my DMing, GMing, storytelling kind of shit. And then Saturdays at 6 p.m. EST, discussing tabletop, news of the week, deeper discussion topics, talking about tabletop, hanging out with friends. It's kind of chill, great time to just chat about tabletop. And some other topics occasionally too. Anyway, mention the social media, mention the schedule. Okay, everybody, I'm going to get going. I'm going to say thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Camazotz. Diving into them a little bit more. I hadn't known about the redemption arc that our good friend Miguel Gutierrez had gone on, and it was interesting to learn about that. Part of it's been redeemed in the Bat Totem. That was a little neat. Something that, now there are those that serve the Bat Totem have forgotten. Because redemption is possible. It makes for good storytelling. And it's good to learn. Anyway, until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.